Typical timing with these things, so apologies to everybody. My name's Jon Knight. I work for Ascentae, and Ascentae are the UK distributor for Nureva. And we're joined from Canada today by Susan, who's over in Calgary at the moment, giving us a little wave. So we're going to speak to her in a moment to actually demonstrate the product and take you through some of the features that we're going to discuss with you. So the context of this is how Nureva Audio can support hybrid learning. Just to introduce everybody to Nureva's audio platform. Sorry, this is my PC rebooting, if you can see that screen that popped up there. Nureva's audio platform is made up of three key elements. So you've got the hardware in the bottom left-hand corner, which comes in three different sizes from an audio perspective. And we're going to be introducing a new hardware product today in the form of a camera. Then you've got the microphone mist technology, which I'm going to explain in a second. But from a technology perspective, you can think of that as the firmware on the software. And then there's the Nureva Console, which is Nureva's management platform, where again, there's a number of updates that keep coming through with Nureva Console, which we're going to share some insights into today as well. So just to start off by trying to describe the unique and patented technology that Nureva have developed, which they've called microphone mist. We talk about this term virtual microphones. So you can see in the image that there is a visual representation of what looks like a grid inside the room. Excuse me a second. And that grid is there to show you what is the representation of virtual microphones. The product is wall mounted. So the actual bar itself is mounted on the wall, and all of the actual physical microphones are inside the bar. So the way that microphone mist works is that it calibrates itself to the room, and the microphone mist creates pickup points within the space. So from a technical point of view, you could think of this as positional-based gain control, where actually what's happening is that the microphone is responding to the position that somebody is within the room and automatically adjusting the pickup levels to deliver a natural audio experience. And this is unique technology to Nureva and a number of patents associated to it. So if we just compare that to traditional coverage, a traditional microphone is an omnidirectional microphone, which is based on proximity. So the closer you are to the microphone, the better you are heard. I'm actually having to work from home today due to some COVID challenges in our household, and I'm using an omnidirectional headset at the moment. And obviously it's very close to my mouth. And if I move it away from my mouth, you're going to hear the quality of my audio decrease. And this technology has been around in traditional kind of microphones for teaching and learning spaces and meeting spaces for a long time. In the last 5 to 10 years, you've had the introduction of beamforming technology, usually ceiling mounted systems. And these beams can be steered to individual parts of the room. Often multiple beams form a part of a beamforming system. We know they're very popular, and in certain scenarios they do a good job, but not quite the same job as you get with microphone mist, which provides full room pickup with that virtual microphone grid covering the entire space. And just to move on to some of the advantages that this will give you, the first thing just to talk briefly about is quick installation. We do recommend professional installation, but installations can take place within 60 to 90 minutes, depending upon what the cable run might be. The actual main part of the product is a wall-mounted, what looks like a sound bar, and then you have a single PoE Cat5 cable that goes back to the control box, which is where you power the system. So there's no high level power that's required. And then you've got your connectivity on that box as well. And so it does mean that these systems can be deployed quickly and at scale. And we've heard that from some of our customers in the UK as a benefit to them. The technology is certainly always improving. There's ongoing updates that Nureva work on regularly, and these releases occur with both the capability of the actual technology in the room, but also on the Nureva Console management platform as well. And then that leads on to the ecosystem. And I'm going to give you an example of a few of the ecosystem partners at the moment, and you'll see that the list is pretty extensive. Nureva recognized that this is part of an overall solution, and therefore you need other elements to work well within the space, and that could be hardware or software. So I'll give you some examples of those in a second. And then we're going to talk about some of the other features at the bottom in a moment, but one that I don't have a separate slide on, so I'll just quickly mention it, which is intelligent sound targeting. So this is the ability for the system to dynamically eliminate background noises. Good examples of that would be heating or air conditioning systems, fans within the room, whether that's projector fan noise or ceiling fan noise. These are all the types of background noises that can occur in a space and create background noises that are sent down the video call or in the recording. Intelligent sound targeting with no programming will automatically recognize these noises and eliminate them from the audio. So I think at this point, I'm going to stop sharing and jump over to a quick live demonstration from Susan of the microphone mist technology.
Great, thanks, John. So as John explained, we are in a microphone mist technology covers a full space, and you have full room pickup. So the space I'm in today, I just want to show, there's an HDL 300 behind me, as you can see. This room is about 10 meters by 13 meters long, and I'll just pan it real quick so you can see glass windows on the one side, and on the other side we'll see the second HDL 300, and you'll see it goes into a wide open space behind. So it is a challenging room, but very similar to a lot of classroom styles in higher education. So just touching on the way the audio system works, John explained our patented microphone mist technology that virtually fills the room with over 16,000 virtual microphones if you're looking at a dual system. So what that means is no matter where I am in the room, you'll be able to hear me fairly clearly. So whether I'm facing the HDL 300 or I'm facing away from it, the pickup and the quality of my voice and what I'm saying should be heard clearly. If I walk over to this side towards the window, you should hear me as well. And then I'll walk all the way outside of the room so you can just hear how it picks me up no matter where I am. So now the second HDL will be picking me up. Now walking back into the space. John touched on something called intelligent sound targeting. So this room that I'm in today is actually very noisy. So I'm in Calgary, Alberta, and snow is on the ground and our heating system is kicking in continually. So our HVAC system is very loud in this room. As well, we have two projectors. As you see, they're on between, and kind of the HDL 300 is just between those. What intelligent sound targeting does is it takes that persistent background noise, it measures it, and then it blocks it out so that you won't hear that noise. We also have something called continuous auto calibration. And what that does is if you have some flexible furniture like we do in this room, you're able to move the furniture around, and no matter where you move the furniture, it always calibrates so it has the best pickup possible. So if I was to move these tables into one big group, or if I was to spread them out further, you won't need to reprogram anything to get optimal pickup. You'll just get that optimal pickup. The HDL 300 have two speakers built in. So there's two 20-watt speakers, and that's the audio that I'm hearing you today out of. And then John also touched on installation, the quick installation. It is also very important, as John said, that we work well with other systems in the room. So he will probably go over our Extron, our Crestron, Dante, all those types of integrations that we make sure that we can easily work with and support what a teacher needs in their environment. And so I think that touches on the main part of the HDL 300. I'll just keep moving around so you can hear me and see how it picks up no matter where I am, whether I'm close to the side walls or not. So John, back to you.
That's great. Thanks, Susan. Right, I'm jump back to our slide deck, and we are coming back to Susan for another demonstration in a little bit later in the presentation. So just to give you some examples of some of those integrations, so starting off with UC platforms, and these are actually screen captures straight off Nureva's website, so you can go and read through these in more detail yourselves. The product, the HDL 300, is Microsoft Teams certified, and lots and lots of other integrations and testing has been taken place on all kinds of other products. This second section is more about hardware. So again, depending upon the manufacturer, with Barco and Logitech, for example, Intel Unite, they have official certification programs, which Nureva have successfully worked with them on. So the product is certified by the manufacturers that offer certifications. And we're going to touch in a moment on an example of an integration that's been done with Extron, because we know that control systems are important within many university settings. So we'll give you an example of that in a moment. And then finally, just an example from, excuse me, got a frog in my throat again. Just some examples of platforms that can offer lecture capture or recording facilities as well. And again, we're going to come on to talking about that particular point in a moment. So as you can see, a very large list of integrations that have already been achieved, and Nureva have told us that if there are specific vendors or specific products that you would like to get tested by their team, then they are happy to receive those requests and go through the process of checking that the hardware can work well with whatever system you want it to work with. So just in terms of that case study, this is actually from a university in Holland. We will talk about some UK universities a bit later. In this particular case, they were a university that had a requirement to integrate with Extron control systems in the room. So as you can see, they deployed the Nureva audio system into the space. And through Nureva's developer API, a link has been established which others can now use to allow you to integrate through the Nureva API and Extron to support in-room control of the Nureva audio device. There is another example with Crestron at the moment, which is just going into a full beta trial. So again, Nureva are trying to work on additional integrations all of the time, and these Extron and Crestron integrations are recent examples. Some of the other drivers for the university were the ease of use of the product, the fact that there are no additional microphones required in the space, either handheld or cabled, no batteries required, the ability to have lots of different types of room layouts, and the overall quality of the audio covering all of those spaces. And we'll touch on some other examples of customer names a little bit later. So just so that you understand how the product range is made up, and Susan is in a room where they are using a dual HDL 300, which is on the left-hand side. So the dual is recommended in rooms of up to 15 meters by 9 meters. And I think I heard Susan say that her particular room was 13 meters by 10. Was that right, Susan?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So we do say there can be a little bit of flexibility because, of course, 13 by 10 is actually a little bit longer on one particular direction. But what we're trying to avoid people thinking is that you could put this into a space that was, say, 18 meters by 15 meters and still expect optimum performance. So by all means, speak to us or your integrator to get clarity over specific room dimensions and sizes. Then the middle product, the HDL 300, which is a single soundbar rather than two of them, is the main sort of horsepower for the current product lineup. It's put into the majority of rooms, and you can see that that's optimized for rooms of up to, we actually say 8 meters by 8 meters to keep things simple. Yeah, that's the one that gets bought most of the time. And then the HDL 200 will work in rooms of up to 5.5 by 5.5 or on mobile systems. So you can easily put the HDL 200 onto a trolley, a floor stand with a screen, and then wheel a system around. The pickup from the actual unit will be less, but it does also mean that you can wheel the unit further into a space in order to still use it with groups. So it probably works well in sort of more huddle space rooms, little breakout rooms, or as a mobile system. So just in terms of what we're hearing generally from universities that we're speaking to, is that from the sort of professor, lecturer's perspective, it's all about simplicity. They just want to be able to walk into a room and have a system that works. They don't want to have to go on a training course to learn how to use it. They want to, at the moment, minimize too much touching of equipment whilst we're still learning to live with COVID. And the ability to potentially support physical distancing within the actual physical classrooms themselves. From the perspective of IT staff or AV professionals within the universities, we're hearing more and more demand to enable a hybrid learning experience. From a UK perspective, I understand that a lot of that driver is down to being able to offer flexibility to the students, but in particular, being able to support international students, still being able to access the great education experience that is offered by UK universities. The ability to integrate it into the existing technology environments that you have is extremely important. And we're working actively as the UK distributor with the approved integrators who are on the frameworks in the UK and can therefore offer you professional integration advice around these products. We certainly think that there are some universities who've already invested in the technology who are now beginning to talk about some of the differentiation that it's giving them and the ability for them to embrace and support hybrid and high flex. And I've seen some of that messaging coming out of some of Nureva's customers now to promote the investment that the university is making. And it's certainly Nureva's goal to ensure that your product remains future-proofed. So we talked earlier about the software updates, and that's a consistent commitment by Nureva to keep delivering those software updates to support the latest UC&C software, the changes that Microsoft or Zoom or whoever it is that you're using might be making. That does sometimes impact audio products, and through a combination of their certifications and the fact that they already have the commitment to doing so, whenever we've had a run into a problem, that problem has been solved quickly through a software update. So just to be very clear about the types of scenarios that Nureva and we tend to recommend, we sometimes get questions about whether or not this is a product that we should be putting into a lecture theatre, because it is a product that can cope with large spaces, but it's not been built or optimized for that type of space. It's much more about active collaboration spaces. They can be very large, but we're probably talking about areas where you would have students with the need for those students not just to hear what the lecturer is saying, but participate in conversation, have the ability to respond to questions. And when you're doing that in a hybrid or high flex manner, that's really the problem that Nureva solves differently to all other manufacturers is that the students and the lecturer do not need to think about where they are within those spaces. They don't need to think about where the microphone is or passing a microphone around. The experience is a very natural one and works seamlessly. And that's what we're hearing the actual teaching staff aspiring to when it comes to the challenge of delivering hybrid. So just to move into the management platform, which is called Nureva Console. So there's a lot of development going on within Console on a very consistent basis, but originally it started with the principle that you need to be able to control and manage your devices. And that's exactly what you can do with this. So it's about management across multiple locations from a single and secure dashboard. And obviously that means that your IT or AV professionals can log in via a web browser and access all of this. And in terms of some examples of that remote management, the ability to actually get information off the devices to solve problems. You can see in the scrolling management console on the left-hand side there that you've got a dashboard across the top, which is identifying rooms that need attention. You can log into the device and configure it remotely, do all the things you'd expect to do, increase, decrease speaker levels, check which input's being used, and adjust the settings on the unit itself. You can also obviously deliver firmware and software updates. And recently, Nureva have started to move into publicly talking about the analytics that they're able to deliver, which are delivered through the console interface. So for anybody who's already using a Nureva product, you can log in and see that there is one example of this at the moment, which is background noise. Susan talked about the fact that the fans in her room are this is a British phrase, going gangbusters at the moment. So, from a remote management perspective, you'd be able to log in and actually have a look at when that background noise level is increasing or decreasing and whether or not it's within acceptable parameters for the space. But this is just the start of where Nureva want to go with this, because their technology is capable of being treated much more like a sensor. So you're going to see more and more discussion around the types of audio analytics that they can deliver to help you understand the acoustic performance of your spaces. And that will help you to understand where you have problems, but also where you might need to focus on rooms that need to be improved with things like acoustic treatments, for example. We've touched on this already, but you can see some screenshots on the right-hand side of some of the things that are coming through. And we're going to talk about a couple of other new features at the bottom here, voice amplification mode in particular. So again, all of these settings can be accessed and controlled and turned on or off through the console interface. And you can make that interface visible to your staff within the room if you want to allow them to change any settings. But you can also log in and override that through the remote management platform as well. I'll just mention the developer toolkit. So there is a website where you can go to have a look at this, developers.nureva.com, I believe. And Nureva have a full publicly available API. So if there is anybody technical within your university that wants to take a look at this, you can actually get access to all of these settings through an API that allows you to integrate with anything else. And then obviously I've given some examples of integrations that have already been delivered by Nureva themselves. So I just want to touch on active zone control, because we've seen certain universities where this feature can be important. Active zone control is essentially a prioritization feature. So it's designed to be toggled on and off, and it can be preset up and saved to the unit. So if you have a bring your own device policy, for example, the active zone will always be the same, even if you change the PC. But what the active zone does is it means that when somebody is stood inside the active zone, which is based upon size. So when you set it up, you can literally say, I want this to be 6 meters wide and 3 meters deep, for example, from the unit. And then it will create this active zone where when it detects somebody speaking within the zone, which we're expecting to be a member of staff, it will prioritize their voice over any other voices or noises that it hears within the space. But it still supports active collaboration, because when the person who's in the active zone stops speaking, the conversation that's taking place in the room will still be heard and sent back through the system. Nureva are considering some updates to this feature to make it a more aggressive form of zoning, but at the moment, think of it as a prioritization feature. We have seen spaces in universities where universities have actually used different color carpet to show where the lecturer should stand if they want to be picked up by the microphones versus where they won't be picked up as well. And we know that sometimes links into things like lecture capture systems as well. So this concept of creating an active zone at the front of the room is something that particular scenario would work really well in to embrace the way that space is probably already being used. On to what's a much newer feature which is voice amplification mode. So this is the ability for the lecturer to wear a wireless headset, and when they speak, for that wireless headset to be used inside the room to amplify their voice, but also the ability for those remote participants to hear everything that's going on. So we're just going to go through the 4 different scenarios that this can support simultaneously. Scenario 1 is exactly what I've just described, which is lecturer at the front of the space wants their voice to be heard without having to shout in a medium to large size room. But if you're trying to deliver hybrid, you also want the remote students to be able to hear that voice as well. So as well as that being sent out of the local speakers, you can simultaneously have remote and online students that can be listening. And again, this is treated like a prioritization feature where when the lecturer is talking into their wireless headset microphone, that will be sent through the system as a prioritized audio feed. But when the students in the room do start speaking to support active collaboration and talking, their voices will be picked up by the HDR300, just as Susan was demonstrating earlier, and those remote students will hear the conversation that's taking place within the room as well. Can also support media playback. So that means the ability to have the videos or media files being played back on the computer inside the space and therefore sent through the in-room speakers. And it's also a feature of many UC&C platforms that can happen with their platform as well. And I've actually just realized we're going to be playing you a video of this working in a moment, and I've realized that I may need to just redo my screen share because I forgot to enable audio to be sent back through the screen share. So sorry, that's the haste of what happened at the beginning of this webinar. And then the final scenario that this will support is the fact that you can also support lecture capture. So you can use the PC in the room, or you can use the auxiliary out port to send a feed to any other hardware system. But the system will support these 4 modes simultaneously. And from the perspective of delivering whole room microphone pickup to capture student conversation, we think that this is a unique feature. And certainly from Nureva's point of view, they are in the process of filing for a number of patents to support the fact that they believe that they've tackled a very difficult audio problem. If you try do all four things that I've just said in a space with a wireless headset or wireless microphone, I can pretty much guarantee you will create either echo or feedback or both. Whereas because Nureva have this patented microphone mist technology, they've been able to solve that particular problem to support active collaboration environments in a hybrid setting. So I'm just going to need to restart my screen share for 2 seconds so you hear the actual demonstration of this. So apologies. Need to tick the share sound box in Zoom. Susan, could you just give me the thumbs up that this audio comes through okay? Thank you.
Oh, it seemed to have stopped.
Do you have instructors or presenters who struggle to be heard by both in-room and remote participants? I'm here to demonstrate how voice amplification mode in Nureva Audio can help. I'll start by showing you what my voice sounds like from the back of this large room. This is my voice without any amplification. If you're sitting far away, it can be hard to hear, but Nureva has a solution. I'm going to put on my headset microphone to show you what I mean. Now you're hearing my voice broadcast through the speakers of the HDL300 system above me, making it much easier to hear. I'm going to turn my headset off now. You can hear the difference. And now I'm going to turn it on again. Like that. I don't need to strain my voice to be heard, even from the back of the room. But what about the remote experience? That's where Nureva Audio really shines. Let's bring in Dave and Angie to show how this works.
What you hear now is sound captured by the HDL300 system. It's what Angie's hearing on the call. But it's not just my voice that's being picked up.
And you can hear my voice too. It comes through clearly, even though I'm not wearing a microphone.
That's because unlike single-purpose amplification systems, Nureva uses patented microphone mist technology to pick up all the voices in the room. This means that everyone can hear things clearly, whether they're in the room,
like I am,
or joining remotely.
Sounds great, everyone.
Voice amplification mode is ideal for classrooms, letting students easily hear their instructor, whether they're in the room or remote. But it can also be used for corporate training, town hall meetings, and more. And it's the only voice amplification solution that fully supports both in-room and remote participants. Thanks for watching.
Sorry, having a few problems with my slide deck. Right, hopefully that's back again. So we can share that video for you afterwards. It is available on the public internet with a further article that explains what you've just seen there. But as I said earlier, this is a unique feature that we don't think is available and can be achieved with those four modes with any other technology at the moment. So just to move on to introducing you to a new product, which is essentially an upgrade to the current HDL300 or dual HDL300 that we've been discussing with that voice amplification mode, which is introducing not just a camera, but a complete kit. So this is a 4-port USB hub, all of the cabling that you're going to need to connect the system together, a new remote control that will allow you to control both the HDL300 and the dual HDL300 and the camera as well. And you can still connect and manage both of these devices through Nureva Console and there will also be the option of a new Nureva Pro advanced warranty and access to further analytics on a subscription basis. So the idea here is to make the challenges of deploying hybrid classrooms at scale significantly simpler by tackling some of the key challenges that we hear many people talk about when it comes to deploying these systems, not just in 1 or 2 rooms, but in 50 or 100 rooms. So I just wanted to give you this insight into why Nureva have gone down this road, which is they've looked at the market and seen that there's a lot of very inexpensive cameras at the low end of the market, but they're usually optimized to be placed on top of a screen or at the side of a screen, and they're actually designed to capture the video from the screen looking out into the room. We know that the majority of universities, from a camera perspective, prefer to go down some kind of ceiling or wall-mounted pan tilt zoom camera. The challenges with those when delivering at scale, though, can often be the fact that they can be very expensive. They often lead to a lot of complexity in terms of the installation and the cabling. We know that there are some auto tracking cameras on the market now. But again, that's a very new introduction from the hardware point of view. So in the past, we've heard that the majority of the time it's down to setting up the right presets and then ensuring that the staff member can actually use those presets to control what's happening within the room using that PTZ camera. So Nureva have looked at all of these challenges that they currently see with other camera technology in the market and created this bundle where it may not necessarily work in every single scenario, but it will certainly tackle the majority of the challenges of delivering hybrid teaching and learning at scale. And I think at this point, we're going to switch over to a live demo.
Great. Thanks, John. So John has been explaining the reasons for all the technology, and I've just simply been demoing it. So just to give you a little bit of background as well, our products team has done a lot of research with not only universities, but integrators to understand the problems and what specifically universities are looking for in their classroom. So as we mentioned, first demo, a lot of the issues are full classroom pickup, so that it gives the freedom for the instructor to move anywhere in the room and be heard, as well as the students. So that was the first demo of Nureva Audio. Now I'm just showing you the camera, which John has explained. It has a unique angle, and part of the reason from some of the research we heard is that, as John said, they wanted, instructors wanted presets, and they wanted it to make it simple for the remote students to see them or follow them when they're instructing, or have a clear vision of what's on the board or what images they're showing. The other thing that was took into consideration when we were looking at the camera is sometimes the angle, instructors or the schools didn't want the students in the view at all times, whether that's GDPR or other reasons. It just was, we wanted an angle that focused mainly on the instructor. So with our camera, you can see it has one preset where I can be speaking to you from my desk if I wish. It also has 3 more presets that I can use. So the ones that I have used is a preset where I can walk and I can show you on the board. Sorry, I'm out of this preset. Sorry, this is the first board. I can show you this. I can be working on the board, or I can switch also to this preset, which is this second board here. So the instructor can really have the remote students focus on the material that they want to see. The other option that this one also has is called tracking, so camera tracking. So it's a little bit different than voice tracking. What it does is it tracks kind of from table height up. So it will not track students or follow students, but it will see the instructor standing, and then as the instructor moves around the room, it will follow where the instructor goes. So the camera will follow. Let me just make sure tracking's on. I don't know if it is. There we go. Now it's on. So it will take where I am, and it will track wherever I walk in the room. So as I'm walking around the room, it will stay tracked to where I'm going so the students can see exactly where the instructor is and it stays to the instructor. So as John says, it gives you 3 presets that you can use, and it also tracks if you want to move around the room and do that as well. So that's a quick demo of the 3 presets in the image, just so you could see that.
Excellent. Thank you, Susan. So just to finish off the webinar, and we will try and open up for questions. The apologies again for the late start, which is going to cut down our time slightly. So I mentioned earlier Nureva Pro. So the idea here is to give the ability for you to get extended technical support, but also advanced unit replacement. And there will be options for this to be available for up to 5 years. I also mentioned the additional analytics that Nureva will be releasing over the coming months and years. And some of those enhanced features will only be available to Nureva Pro customers as part of their Nureva Pro license. So it's a combination of technical support, extended product warranty, and also analytics insights. And if any of you are going to hopefully come over to Barcelona in May, I'm tending to find that when we put the words Barcelona and May together, there seems to be a slightly more positive reaction. So I'm hoping that some of you may consider coming out there, and Nureva have a stand at ISE, and I believe we'll be sharing other examples of some of the additional acoustic insights that they can start to deliver through Nureva Console. So just as a summary for you, in terms of the key kind of benefits that we've talked about, the product offers full classroom pickup. And as we said, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the ideal product for every single scenario, lecture theatres being a good example. But we believe it's probably applicable to around 70 to 80% of teaching spaces where you may want to enable active collaboration and hybrid teaching. The ability to actually have the space configured and supporting pretty much any room size or configuration up to 15 meters by 9 meters, having the ability to have flexible furniture. Again, we're hearing that creating kind of in-room collaboration experiences from a furniture perspective, it is an angle that a number of universities are going down and have been going down for a while. It frees up the lecturer. There's no reliance on physical microphones, no batteries that need charging. Everything is wall mounted, out of the way, simple to use from a lecturer's point of view. And it can be installed quickly. As I say, we do recognize that there's lots of other elements that you may need to install as well. But just from the audio perspective, it's not going to take lots and lots of time to be programmed, and then for programmers to have to come back and continue to update the system over time. It will just continue to auto-calibrate itself and give full coverage of the room. And there's a huge amount of flexibility over which software and hardware platforms you use, rather than this being something that is tied to one particular vendor. And we think, again, that ability to offer choice is important. So just in terms of some examples of UK institutions that are actively using or testing Nureva at the moment, some of these have bought a small number of units, some of them have bought a much larger number of units. But as you can see, there's a growing list of UK universities, pretty much across the whole breadth of the UK, who are actively getting involved in testing and using the product at the moment. I can't tell you who has deployed the most from a confidentiality perspective, but some of our largest customers have about 100 rooms set up now and have defined Nureva to be part of their room standards now. Others are much earlier in this journey. and just testing 1 or 2 rooms, and we can support you on that journey alongside your integrator of choice. So we have access to demonstration units. We can support things like try and buy programs, so that you can get this technology into your university and test it for yourselves. So with that, thank you very much for joining us today. We have recorded this. We will make the recording available afterwards. I know we've had a few questions, so I'm going to jump onto those now. Apologies again for the slightly slow start. Right, so Susan, feel free to jump in if you can help me with an answer here. We had one in earlier. Does the HDL300 have mic priority built in as a DSP feature? I may need somebody to give me more information regarding what they mean by that. What I can tell you is that the system will automatically has prioritization built in for human voice. So that's an extension to the intelligent sound targeting feature. We actually sometimes do demonstrations where we have more time, where we might do things like tap on a keyboard, for example. You'll hear the keyboard noise going back through the system, but then when somebody starts speaking, you'll hear that although the keyboard noise is still in the background, the human voice is prioritized. So my understanding is that Nureva have created the software to identify the spectrum, the audio spectrum that the human voice is normally within, and ensure that that is always prioritized over any other noises in the room. Susan, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And the other thing that makes it easier than other technology is the way we apply gain control. It's not within a full low. It is actually applied to the human voice over distractive noises, and that's where you really see the pickup on the voice rather than the distractive noises.
Yeah, sorry, we've had a supplementary comment on that, referring to giving priority to external input from a presenter's worn mic. So I'm reading into that we're talking explicitly in voice amplification mode.
Yeah, so in voice amplification, the presenter's microphone is prioritized.
Yeah.
So by all means, if you need to ask us for more clarification on that, then please come back to us. Next one, can we adjust the active zone for dual HDL300, or is it only for a single HDL system? The answer to that is that you can adjust it for a dual. A dual can actually be set up with 2 separate active zones, and both of them can be saved to be different from the other one, but you can only have one active zone running at once. So I don't know whether that answers that question fully, but that's the current scenario. You can set up 2 separate zones, and the zone has to always start from where the HDL300 has been mounted on the wall, and you work out from there. But you can set up 2 separate zones with a dual, but you can only have one active at once. And the light on the front of the unit will actually show which unit is currently running an active zone. Is there any other way to adjust sound EQ, I guess that's sound equalization, without the console software? So Susan, do you want to take that one?
Well, you can, so console client, you can adjust it through that. And if you do not have a PC in the room, you can adjust it. And then like John mentioned, for bringing your own device, you can walk in and those settings are saved within the HDL300. So that is how you can adjust that.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a local client that you can install which allows you to make all of the adjustments to the unit in the room, so you don't have to connect it to console. But the advantage of console will be that you can then continually adjust those settings or make changes over time. We've got a question here. None of this is available on HDL200. Are there updates in relation to this? I don't think there's anything that I've said that's not available on HDL200. Susan, is there? Oh, sorry, voice amplification would be the only one. correct?
Correct. That's, I mean, some of our integration aren't as easily done with the HDL 200. Most of
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
So certainly microphone mist as a technology and the ability to set up an active zone, for example, that is all available on the HDL 200. As Susan said, at the moment, and I say at the moment because there are hopefully some updates coming in the future, but at the moment the HDL 200 only has a USB connectivity rather than line in, line out. So it does therefore make it a bit more limiting. We do generally still find, though, that the HDL 200 is too small for the majority of the university scenarios that we need to try and support, because most of the time rooms are just naturally designed to be bigger.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in there. There have been some university requests for just front of the room pickup. So they just wanted the instructor to be heard. And they actually did not want the students at the back of the room, their questions and whatnot, to be heard by the remote students. So they looked at something like the HDL 200 to just pick up less of the room coverage.
And I'll just tackle the I guess it's a comment that's come in regarding the fact that there's a big difference between the audio level of my mic compared to the Nureva mic. That's always going to be the case. I mean, my mic is 5 centimeters from my mouth. And any scenario where you can have a microphone that close to somebody's mouth, no matter what type of microphone it is, it will always deliver a slightly louder, and you may have actually heard when in the recording that was done of voice amplification that the person who's wearing the headset, the voice does sound slightly louder when it comes through the UC and C call, because the microphone again is very, very close to their mouth. That is the best way of delivering good quality audio. But the limitation is that as soon as I take this headset off and walk to the other side of the room, and actually I'm cabled to this PC, so this isn't even a wireless headset, therefore I have no flexibility. I have no ability to move around the room, and you cannot support active collaboration taking place within a room. Nureva will continue to develop the quality of the microphone pickup. But what you should have heard throughout the call today is that at no point have we missed anything that Susan has said, and that the experience has been a very natural one to listen to. So I don't know whether that answers that point, but that would be my feedback. Is, you know, it's a bit like people saying to me, you know, which one's better, in person or remote meetings or teaching? The answer should always be in person, because in person is the best experience that we as human beings can have. But when it comes to, you know, joining online, there's nothing more frustrating than not being able to hear what's being said. So I know we're out of time now. Really appreciate everybody joining us today. I will have a quick look and see if there's any other comments or questions that have come through, which I don't think there are. So unless anybody has anything else they'd like to ask, we'd just like to finish up by saying thank you very much. Apologies for the slight technical challenge at the beginning. And we hope to speak to some of you soon if you'd like to find out more. Oh, and thank you to Susan for joining us early in the morning in Canada.
Absolutely. Thank you, Susan, as always.
Thanks a lot. Have a good day.